Okay, welcome to WOVV 90.1 Ocracoke Community Radio. A new show called Talking with Real Live People with Ehringhaus, your hostess. And today I'm talking with Audrey Penn, who is the author of 3 books about Blackbeard set on Ocracoke Island. So welcome, Audrey.
Thank you for inviting me. This is very exciting because I understand this is your first interview.
It is. So, where I was just asking you where you live now.
Well, we live in Olney, Maryland, which is halfway between Baltimore and Washington, D.C.
Okay.
But we're moving to the Raleigh-Durham area, Wake Forest. We're house hunting as we speak.
Wonderful. So that's a lot closer to Ocracoke
than
Maryland.
That's the point.
Yeah, good. Well, I want to start by asking, I know you wrote some books before you began the Blackbeard series, and I'm just curious about your connection with Ocracoke.
Okay, in 10th grade, my 10th grade history teacher introduced me to Blackbeard. And he introduced me to a very different Blackbeard than I had heard about or read about. And so I got the bug. And after I started writing and had my own style, I decided, okay, it's time. And I went to his home and asked him, okay, I want to start. I want to write a book about him that's never been written. I don't want to read anything that's been written about him. I want to start from scratch. Where do I go? And he said, this place called Ocracoke Island, North Carolina. So in 1977, I packed a bag, packed my 4-year-old, took a girlfriend with her 5-year-old, and we trucked down here on mostly sandy roads. And we stayed at Blackbeard's Lodge.
Of course.
And the manager came down one day because I was working, just writing. And he said, what are you writing? And I said, well, I'm going to write a book about Blackbeard, and I'm going to write a book about the descendants of the pirates who sailed with Blackbeard, the children that live here who are the descendants. And he said, well, let me tell you something, lady. He said, there are 3 things you need to know. We don't like strangers. We don't like questions, and we don't like strangers with questions. And it was until 1990 that the first person finally told me something family related. So before that, I mean, we got to know everybody. We kept coming down. My kids were raised here, but still nobody would tell me anything family related till 1990.
Well, that is a perfect example of really getting to know Ocracoke better, because that is something that takes time, and that is really a gift from the people of Ocracoke.
Yes, it is.
So it's not just automatic.
No.
People are friendly, mostly, but
they're wonderful.
Yes.
But they don't want to share their family. They want to keep that to themselves, and I love them for it. And the fact that they opened the door to me really was a gift. And I understood that in 1990. I mean, it had been long enough that I understood that.
That's beautiful. I really love that. I want to ask you why you feel people are so interested in pirates in general and in Blackbeard specifically.
Because Blackbeard was only a pirate for 2 years. So how did he become this awesome character in literature? And
only 2 years?
Only 2 years, from 1716 to 1718. And yet he became this huge character in history because of his looks and because people thought that, he lit fire to his beard and he, shot his 6 pistols that were across his chest, and he pulled out his cutlasses and swords and he tore into people, and they had all these, ideas of who he was, and, part of that were the theatrics of it were true, but he never harmed a soul.
But it got him it got him a big reputation.
Yeah, it got him a huge reputation.
I didn't know he'd only been a pirate for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow, he made the most of it, didn't he?
He did indeed. And the people that he collected around him were kind of the awesome pirates, and when people came after to kill him, when the Spanish came after him or the English sent people after him, then of course he defended himself. But, and he could be awesomely horrible when he needed to be. But when he went after ships or he was on the mainland, he never drew a gun. He never drew a sword. As a matter of fact, the reason that he was killed was he was really ruining the kind of sails that were happening on the waters, because he didn't like the English and he was giving out to the villagers things that he didn't need and that they needed. So
supplies?
That they didn't, yes, well, things for their homes and stuff. And so that they didn't have to buy from the English. They didn't have to pay the tax and stuff like that.
So he was undermining the English.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I know there are many theories about where he actually lived, and many places claim him. But is there any controversy around the fact that he died off Ocracoke?
No, none.
That nobody's saying no, he didn't. He died in Florida.
No, he died here.
So that's really holding up through time.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, there's no question he was here.
So you now have written 3 books about children on Ocracoke,
right,
and the story of Blackbeard,
right,
and you have a 4th that's in production,
right. I was to write book 4. It was supposed to be a quartet from the beginning, and I brought in the Civil War right in book 1. There was a connection between Blackbeard and the Civil War. I didn't want to bring that up in book 1, but I brought in Civil War stuff in book 1, and book 4 brings the Civil War into the book. And the kids got really excited. I was in one school and I said, well, there's Civil War in book 4, and they broke out into applause. So they're really excited. But I got deathly ill, and it's taken 2 years to kind of climb back to life. And it got to the point where there was a huge separation between me and the children in the book and the feel of Ocracoke. And I wasn't sure I could find my way back, because it's sort of like climbing into a cloud when I write. These people exist. This place exists. It's Ocracoke, but it's Ocracoke inside of Ocracoke. I call it Here But Not Now.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
And that's in the book. It's this book takes place here but not now. And I had to find myself back in. So I came back to Ocracoke twice just to kind of find myself back to Ocracoke. And then I came back this May 1st, leaving everything at home, everything. Mail, bills, everything. And came for 1 month and said, if I can't find my way back by May 30th, we'll call it a day. And by doing that, I sat down and book 4 started just rolling in. So it happened, yeah.
That's great. And did that happen early in the month of May?
About the end of the second week. And then it became, all I did was the typing. They did the writing. As a matter of fact, a lot of arguing. I started writing something, and then I'd take a shower, and the kids would argue with me. That's not the direction we're supposed to go. And I'd have to come out of the shower, get dressed, and retype it because they won. And they always win. I'll type it one way, and then later there'll be an argument in my head, and I have to go back and change it. I know that sounds out of...
No, it doesn't, because so many writers say, as they're writing, they don't know how it's going to end. So I feel like for people who aren't so familiar with the creative process, it's hard to understand how we give ourselves over to the process without really knowing where it's taking us.
Well, the ending I write first.
Oh, you do.
I always write the ending first. It's getting there. It's sort of like I leave Maryland to get to Ocracoke, but maybe sometimes I won't take the straight shot. I'll go to Elizabeth City, or I'll go to Raleigh, or I'll, it's that. It's taking roads to get here that maybe I've never taken before. And because the steering wheel does it, or in our case, the car, the thing in the front that tells you where you're going.
The GPS?
The GPS. We have one that's stuck on a Florida restaurant, and if you punch it in, it tells us we're still going to that Florida, to the, what is it, Pennsylvania or New Jersey. It's a restaurant, and no matter what we do, we're supposed to go to that restaurant.
Well, maybe there's something there for you. There might be another book waiting there at that restaurant.
So that's what's happened, and
so you know the end point,
yeah,
by knowing the ending, but you're not sure what the roads are going to be to get to that ending.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And usually I'm pretty close, but with this book, I told the kids yesterday at school that I got to one sentence and I worked 7 months. 7 months on the single sentence before I could go on to the next. I've never done that before.
Pivotal.
I never, ever want to do it again. That was the sentence here, but not now. I didn't know how to get to the audience what it meant, how to explain it.
Because that's only 4 words, but they're so expansive.
Yeah.
And they sort of, on hearing them, they kind of take me into a time that's hard to define.
Yeah.
So that's where you were going, and you needed the right entree to it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so patient to get that. And then you just rolled again.
Right. That was it. Right. Finally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great. So I noticed in book 1 that you say thanks to 3 people on Ocracoke who were young when you met them, and they're not old now, but Lena and Todd and Jennifer Esham.
Yeah.
Were they some of the island kids that you met when you first came here?
Right. When I first started in Maryland, I would collect kids and I would play act things like, I had a coffin made for me, and I had Nautilus weights put in it. And then I got somebody to help me at a local lake, and I borrowed children from a school to help me dump a coffin and do things like that. And then when I got here, I had to do the same thing. But here, I had to get permission to get children to help me break into the church and steal the coffin and then take it over to the ditch and then have somebody take us out and dump the coffin. And really funny things happened, like they dropped it and the Nautilus weights fell out. So Lena Austin put her hands in the back and she said, "We're Southern, we don't touch dead bodies." Because I told them they had to put it back in. And then there was a little boy, Bruce, and I don't remember his last name, but he I had told them that when we got to the water, they would have punched holes in the top of the coffin so we could push it into the water so Mrs. McNemish, who's the main character, wouldn't float back to town. And when they dropped it, the top of the coffin broke. It busted. And he said, "Well, Miss Audrey, I can't poke holes in the top of the coffin now. You want me to poke holes in Mrs. McNemish?"
Oh, no.
So those were the kind of, and I had a tape recorder going the whole time. So book 1, they wrote.
So they gave you the dialogue.
That was it. But from 77 to 90, and then from 90 to, I guess it was 2000, I had the children write the book. But it wasn't until 90 to 2000 that I had these kids.
Here on Ocracoke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. I just love how that completely deepens the connection, your connection with Ocracoke and with these books. And what age group would you say is most appropriate?
I wrote it with 5th grade in mind. So a good third to high school kids that, may not be as sophisticated and going into the real